Out of the various aspects under the front office umbrella, cashiering plays a very vital role. Now, by definition, a hotel cashier is someone who collects money from guests for their lodging accommodations and any other fees that they may incur during their stay. For example, there's parking fees, there's valet, there's room service, the guest has opted for in-room dining options, then room service is accountable for, and at the same time there's could be the usage of telephones for making international calls. That could be another perfect example, and the cashier accounts for the same. Now, a cashier's primary role is to assist customers in the in-store checkout process as well. Now, let's understand that it is, as I mentioned, an important area in the front office department, because it not only accounts for revenues but also helps and plays a major role in the checkout process. And some hotels have a separate cashier. Other hotels have the receptionists uh, who can multitask in both check-ins and checkouts. Now, all revenues are accounted for, and the cashier reports the same to the accounting and finance department. Now, for example, if the guest has ordered for a certain dish from room service, now room service would be accountable. And if a guest has ordered specifically Indian cuisine or Indian dishes, then the same revenues is accounted for and transferred to the F&B uh, revenue section, whereas the final amount is chargeable to the guest. And the final report of all uh, of all the accounts would be reported to the accounting and finance department. Now, a cashier also has to take charge over cash, the foreign exchange, and paid outs. Now, there's some hotels that are RMCs or restricted money changers. If we consider any of the prime five-star properties or luxury hotel properties, in say in India, they are restricted money changers or RMCs. That means, for example, if there's an international guest who's willing to convert their foreign currency into the local domestic currency, if now, for example, we are talking about India, so if they want to convert their, say, New Zealand dollars to INR, they can avail of the same and they can do so once they go to the cashier. However, they cannot um, again use smaller denominations, or even they cannot convert Indian currency back into their currency. That's a result of an RMC, a restricted money changer. It's possible to exchange foreign currency for Indian currency, but at the same time, it's not. Most hotels do not engage in converting domestic currency into foreign currency. Now, it's also important for cashiers to take a look at the early departures of the next day, to even check for due outs, read briefing points. They even have to keep a track of the upsell, of any upsells or right sells. The difference in revenue must be accounted for. They should again, check with the duty manager and post these upsell amounts manually in the system, because upsell again is more revenue for the hotel. Then again, electronic data capture batch detail report is again another responsibility of the cashier, because the cashier has to print EDC batch detail reports and tally these same with the invoices paid by the customers. So now it is important for them to account for the payments, as well as the verifying the same by referring to the EDC batch detail reports, which usually comes from credit cards or Visa card payments. They have to separately prepare an early departure report and email the front officer. So basically, once they check the early departures for the day, check for due outs, they have to separately prepare an early departure report to keep a tab and make a note of how many departures have taken place for the given day. And last but not the least, it is important for them to maintain a logbook, to keep a record of every account and every transaction, and any requests or any um, payments that are expected from guests or payments made. It's important to maintain a logbook and a particular date, day, and time. At the same time, there may also be some customers, some guests who are, say, probably corporate clients, or are more we could refer to as mice, maybe not exactly corporate, but more into mice, meetings, incentives, conventions, and exhibitions. Now, incentives are basically those group of individuals who have been granted incentive stays at luxury hotels or any boutique hotels, granted on the basis of their performance. Now, for example, say if you're looking at a company such as Microsoft, now the sales team has achieved their targets, and at the same time they have achieved more than what they're supposed to achieve in terms of bringing in revenue and business into their accounts, into their company accounts. As a result, uh, Microsoft's management team decides to allow the entire sales team to go on an incentive vacation, say probably a 5 day stay or a 4 day stay at any of the prime properties in the country. Now, these amounts, any bills charged to these guests, would directly be charged to companies known as BTC. That means bills to company. So, if there are any, say, room service charges or any um room tariff charges or any other charges incurred by these incentive guests, then they would not be directly charged. However, the company would be charged for their stay and their expenses. This is known as bills to company. Now, moving forward. Now, upon the checkout process, it's important for the cashier to greet and assist the guests according to the time of the day. Now, usually hotels, the typical check-in time of hotels is 2 p.m. and the checkout time is at 12 p.m. However, early checkouts are possible. Late checkouts would be chargeable, probably a half day's tariff. However, this is again entirely dependent on the hotel and the type of hotel and the category of hotels and the SOPs and the standard operating procedures followed by the hotels in question. Now, if there are any minibar consumption services, any last minute minibar services, it is a responsibility of the cashier to inquire from the guest and to confirm with them. Now, usually the the cashiers are in the front office, and the housekeeping department in this case go hand in hand because they use a common software known as NoCross. Some hotels have adopted this software known as NoCross, whereby any minibar consumptions can be tracked easily. So this leads to a proper coordination between the two departments. And at the same time, the minibar consumption status, as well as any last minute minibar services upon checkout or after checkout, it's important to coordinate the same with the housekeeping department, and at the same time confirm with the guest if there have been any minibar consumptions and or any last minute minibar services if they wish to avail of. Minibar is again a very profitable mm, revenue generating area for a hotel. So it is extremely advantageous. Then again, the cashier has to check for baggages, see if there are any baggages um, left in the room. Here they have to coordinate with the bell desk and see if there are any baggages, and they can offer assistance for the same. They should also ask for transportation to the guests, as in how they would like to proceed to the airport or to the station or wherever they would like to go after checking out of the hotel. Whether they would like to book an Uber or they would opt for hotel transportation cars or vehicles that are chargeable. Another important responsibility of a cashier is to check whether safety deposit, the safe deposit box has been vacated. The cashier has to ask the guest during bill payment upon checkout whether the safe deposit box has been vacated or anything valuable is left behind. So this is one of the standards that a cashier has to follow upon checkouts. They have to ask the guest the mode of payment for settling bills, either through credit cards or debit cards or by cash. Then they once the payment has been made, they staple the charge slip along with the invoice and then ask the guest for the payment. And then at the end of the whole process, the cashier also has to thank the guest for staying with the hotel and look forward to welcoming them back. And if possible, put in uh, valuable feedback on TripAdvisor, which is a very common platform based on the satisfactory stay. Now let's move on to night auditing. This is again a very crucial aspect because the night audit itself is nothing but an audit of the guest ledger or front office ledger. That is a collection of all accounts receivable for currently registered guests. It can also be defined as the collection of all guest folios, the billing receipts for currently registered guests. So, a night auditor must have strong customer service skills and have knowledge of mathematics and bookkeeping and safety and security procedures. And at the same time, they must be very, very well versed with Microsoft Opera or any other software application programs. The purpose of night audit is to properly record and reconcile guest transactions. It is basically nothing but a double check of the guest accounts and see whether they've been charged correctly, and at the same time verify the same, again referring to the relevant documents. The most convenient time to perform a night audit is between the late evening and early morning, when there are no check-ins and check-outs, when the front office or the reception area is relatively free or not active or not busy. That's the perfect time to conduct a night audit, whereby every aspect is scrutinized and there is attention to every minute detail of guest accounts and payments and how the payments have been made. They also have to ensure that rollovers are made from one business day to the next day. By rollover, I mean to say there's a proper trial balance. Closing closing balance is carried forward as an opening balance for the following day. They reconcile all front office cash accounts. This is, as I mentioned before, all cash accounts have to also be reconciled. They have to verify posted entries to resident and non-resident guest accounts. Now, for example, if there's a resident guest who's staying and who's already currently staying in a hotel and is availed of certain amenities, services, for example, let's say the spa. And if there's also a non-resident guest who's just come to avail of the spa facility, now again, both have to be charged separately because usually human errors do take place in accounting. However, it is always good to have a double check and to see whether the resident guest has been charged separately and the non-resident guest is also charged separately. Then they also resolve room status and rate discrepancies because they keep a check on the daily bar rate, which is the best available rate, and the room status, how many rooms have been occupied. The room status report is usually generated, and they refer to this and they try to resolve. They have to resolve the discrepancies that exist between the room status and the rates, whether they're how many rooms have been vacant and occupied, or occupied, how many rooms have generated revenue. So this is again basically a double check. Then they also generate several management information system reports known as MIS reports, such as the night audit report, which is the most important report in this regard. And now here, this is a perfect example of a night audit report. Now here we can see the charges total of all postings minus discounts, credit notes, voidings posted for the day. Then cash transactions, all receipts less reversals posted today. So from cash, generate 895.75, checks nil, credit cards nil, debit cards nil, direct credits 340, cash expenses minus. So at the end of the day, the ledger movement amount was 5110.7, and total cash transactions is all receipts less reversals posted. So it should be the same and there should be a balance. Now moving forward, the main responsibility of the night auditor is to ensure that all transactions that have occurred in a day are correctly posted to guest accounts. As we had previously mentioned, the night auditor must also evaluate the correct occupancy status of the hotel. They have to look at the occupancy report. They have to consider scrutinizing and analyzing the occupancy report generated from the front office department and from the housekeeping department and verify the same. And if any discrepancies occur, it is their responsibility to eradicate the same. Now, they have to also ensure that the rack and actual rates are the same. The rack rates and the actual rates, the original rates, are the same. Now, the night auditor also ensures that the no-show bills are duly charged and the rooms are marked as available for future dates. So therefore, if they have to also even prepare a trial balance, which helps in accurately posting a day's room and tax charges. Now, the process of balancing all revenue center accounts is called a trial balance. And in this respect, the night auditor shall compare vouchers received at the front desk and other documents with revenue center summaries, or known as Z reports, which is very common. And night auditors may prefer to conduct trial balances before posting a day's room and tax charges.